Let's talk about creating space using reverbs. So the way we can do that is applying reverberation. Let's say just like this. Turn this off. Just like this, using a reverb, let's say on the snare. So as you can see, I can fiddle with this reverb and adjust, as I've put it as an insert on this clap. So as you can see, I can adjust the relation between the dry and wet signal, so the unprocessed signal and the processed reverberation signal. Right here, we talked about this in the audio processing course. And I can adjust that until I think there is just enough reverb on the snare. Also, I can adjust the duration or the decay time of this reverb, the RT60. So you see, I can make it much longer or much shorter, as I would actually like for the snare to be much shorter reverb. See, with and without. Without and with. Now, this is too much reverb, definitely. I definitely put in quite a bit less of reverb right there. So the point of that reverb I'm applying to the snare, in my case, is just to create the illusion of space. I don't want too much of it, of course, because that wouldn't sound too natural to me. In the end, once I play the entire song, you won't hear that reverb specifically, but it will put this clap and other elements that I apply reverb to in a nice space, and the song will sound spacier. So I will be creating a virtual soundstage by doing this, since as I apply reverb to things, they sound a bit further away than they were when they were dry with no reverb on them. As a comparison, let's say like this, you and a friend walk into a gym hall and you talk, you can hear that reverb happening, you can hear what space you're in. Even if both your eyes were closed, you can hear that you were in a certain space. You can always recognize that. There is a difference when you two are close to each other. You can still hear that reverb, you know what space you're in. But if your friend moved away, like further away from you, you would hear that reverb louder than his actual voice at some point, as he moves backwards by the actual relation of the original sound source, which is his voice, and the reverb, and what is the relation of, gain of volume between them. You could decide how far away he is in that room away from you. So this is what we are doing using reverbs. As I adjust the dry-wet balance right here, I can decide and actually make an illusion of, distance for this clap for the listener. So as I add more reverb, this clap is going to sound further away in that artificial soundstage that I'm creating. So from all of the sounds in my song, as I'm adding reverb to them, I'm making them sound further away in the speakers, in that soundstage. They sound like they're coming from behind the speakers. And thus I'm creating an interesting soundstage where all of my sounds are now placed in a kind of a 3D field, where I can place them left and right using the panning, and I can place them back and forth using reverberation. If I apply no reverberation to a sound, it will sound really close to the listener. If I apply a lot of reverberation compared to the original dry signal, it will sound like it's further away from the listener. Thus, I'm placing those sounds in kind of a 3D environment. Now, this creates a lot of space for the elements, and understand that while you're doing this, you're creating space for those sounds too, as they sound there like coming from a different position in the room. So aside of sounding more natural, your song starts to sound bigger, as big as the space you're applying with that reverb is. You might think, well, I might just apply reverb to everything. Well, that's not the solution. As if you applied reverb to everything, and we can try that right now. Let me move this reverb from that clap to our master track, just like this. Now I'm applying reverb to everything. I'm just going to disable this compression we had. So as I'm applying this reverb to the whole song, that's not going to sound very flattering, especially to the low frequencies I'm applying it to. So let's hear what that sounds like. The song actually somehow loses focus, and that's even with this short reverb. If I added a longer one, like this, sounds as if you walked into a big rave in a warehouse, and you wouldn't want that. Imagine that this song is actually produced and exported and sold as a song with a reverb like this. What would happen if you played this song now in a real warehouse? So you would have this reverb plus the reverb on top of it. This is not really a good idea, placing everything in that reverberation field. What would be a better idea if you have something close to the listener, something a little bit further away, and something really far away. Now this is going to create an illusion of space. Having something really far away, at least let's say just one element in the song of all of these 50 tracks. Let's say I choose only one element that happens sometimes and I place it in a really, really long and a lot of reverb. When I say a lot of reverb, I mean this dry-wet relation right here. So I place it in a lot of reverb. That one sound is going to give information to our brain that compared to all the other sounds I didn't place in a reverb is much further away. Now, when you have that reference for the brain, something close and something really far away, that creates a really nice illusion. So placing everything in a reverb, not really a good idea. Maybe for some types of music, let's say instrumental music, where you have only a voice and a guitar, or only a voice and a piano, but still you wouldn't do it this way, although it would sound the most natural. So if you were listening to a piano and a vocalist together, most probably they would be right in front of you, a piano be a little bit to the left and the singer would be a little bit to the right, or the singer would be sitting on the piano and then they would be both in the center. You would hear some reverb. So this kind of solution would actually work. It would make it sound quite natural, because that's what the sound would be in a natural setting. But in a song where you have production, where you have a lot of channels, a lot of instruments, you want to make sure that you place those instruments, in a nice sound stage. This is why reverbs help. So aside of having your sounds, quieter, louder, you can put them left and right between the left and right speaker. You also have the reverb to place them further back and closer in the front, so you can place them in that, nice 3D space in front of the listener, creating a really nice soundstage, really nice illusion of an orchestra playing, whatever the orchestra might be, even if it's electronic music orchestra. Now, you can always gain some space by adding delays, adding some, spatial illusions of stereo, but reverb is actually unavoidable in music production, since it really creates that natural soundstage as we are used to hearing music just like that. Now, I must warn you, usually as beginners do, I did that too. Of course, when I was a beginner, I added a lot of reverb to everything. And because, at that point, it sounds really cool, but much later you realize that your song is baited in reverb, and it's so much of it that it's creating that nice carpet of noise underneath your entire song, making everything dirtier and everything less concrete, all the sounds kind of messed up. So you want to avoid adding too much reverb. So how much is too much and how much is enough reverb? Well, you need to practice. For that, you need to practice. Usually I tend to add my reverb just as much, unless it's a special effect, let's say on a kick drum where I want the reverb to create a special effect, like the reverb is in space, although in space there's no sound, but if I wanted to create that kind of illusion, but for the purposes of naturality, I would add just enough reverb so that I can notice, if I bypass it, that something is missing. And that's all, just enough of it. To really get a hang of it, you really have to practice with it. That is the only way to learn how to efficiently use reverb. Now, in the next lesson, we will learn something about the most common practices and how reverbs are most commonly used.